I'm AJ Rohde, Senior Partner here at Thoma Bravo, and I'm with my main man, Peter Hernandez, Senior Vice President on our team. Today on Behind the Deal, we'll unpack the details of our take private of NextGen Healthcare with insights from CEO David Sides. Okay, guys, thanks for coming. Welcome. Thanks for making the trip out. David, pleasure to see you. Peter, good to see you, bud.
Yeah, good to be here.
We're going to have a fun discussion today. So I want to kick off. David Sides to my left here, the illustrious David Sides, CEO of NextGen Healthcare. I like to call David a bit of an industry luminary, industry visionary, and we've been fortunate enough to work with you now for a few years. You've served in leadership roles at several healthcare IT organizations over the years, Teladoc most notably and most recently. What do you think you learned from those roles that prepared you for your time here at NextGen? And then Peter's going to ask you a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about then when you came in, what that was like. So maybe start with your background, your history, and how that kind of set you up for where you ended up today.
Great. Well, it's great to be here, AJ and Peter. Thanks for having me out. You know, the history, I think sometimes when you're going through some of these roles, things happen that seem like they're, really difficult at the time, and you're learning through those and you're thinking, gosh, I've gone through this one time. Why did I have to go through this? Right. And it comes up later in your career and it's like, oh, that actually was a great learning moment for this thing that's coming up. So, I was at Cerner for many years, learned a lot about fundamental healthcare IT, automating things, because at NextGen, we automate the ambulatory practice of medicine. And at Cerner, we had a really good data-driven process. We were a public company, so a lot of transparency. And just really taking those kind of ideas forward on thinking through how do you go from vision to mission to strategy to value to results. And those things have stuck with me. And then I had things like at Streamline Health, which was the first public company that I ran. We got into a little bit of a proxy fight. And so I met the different people that work around that, like Joel Frank, and we couldn't afford it. So we lost the proxy fight before it even started. We went around and we said, okay, what do we have to do to make this work? And they're like, yeah, it's going to cost you $10 million.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we can't afford $10 million. We'll have to have this person join the board.
That's the game they play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, thanks for taking us through that. Obviously, a ton of incredible public company experience with really important healthcare organizations. You got involved with NextGen in 2021 when it was in the middle of a proxy fight. Could you talk about you joining NextGen? What was the state of the company, the state of the board, other management team members? Just take us through that journey for you personally, and maybe why you got excited about the role, the opportunities that you saw, and a little bit everything predating our interaction would be super helpful to go through.
Yeah. So the NextGen has been in business for 50 years and had been a public company for 40 years. So a long history. It's an older healthcare IT company than even Cerner or Epic. So predated both of those companies, which are, been around for a long time. And you could look at the financials and see that the company just wanted to make money. Do you know what I mean? Like it was trying to make money, but something, whatever it was on how it was being run or positioned in the market, it wasn't growing. And it was making money, but not like it could. And so in that, I, saw an opportunity to do, hey, how could we accelerate growth? And then be sure we're reorienting to the clients and the customers and really bring them a lot of value and modernize the technology and really get things going. Now, the board approached me because the board was split. So it was a founder-led business it was founded by Sheldon Raisin, and they fired the CEO in May. And so he wanted to go a different direction and be able to pick a CEO, and the other members of the board wanted to go another direction. And they were unable to work that out to the point that they got into a proxy fight with each other. And so, the part of the board that was split needed to find a new CEO to have a new story to tell the street to get people excited about it, because Sheldon was such a majority shareholder that otherwise he could have potentially won the proxy contest. And so I came on board as the CEO, knowing that, if we lost, it could be a short tenure, right? It would have been really short. But we kind of worked through, here's what we're going to do with the business, and this is how we'll move forward. We'll start modernizing the tech, we'll get back to clients, and we'll start growing again. And we ended up winning the proxy contest through some really clever mechanisms too, where we reincorporated during the middle of the annual shareholder process into Delaware. And it worked out great because then I saw Shelley at his house and he was like, this is fantastic. He's like, I got everything I wanted. We fixed most of the governance. We fixed all the governance issues that he'd complained about. And we now had a growth platform for the way forward. And so we started growing from there instead of growing like, inflation or less. Now we're growing, upper teens to double digits.
You had an opportunity to take a lot of roles, right? You had a very good career. You took the role, proxy contest notwithstanding, you took the role at the company for a reason. You saw an unpolished gem. You saw an opportunity. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many providers, right? So 100,000 providers in the U.S. Is something that is really difficult to create.
Yeah.
I mean, it just takes a long time to do that many contracts, especially if you're at the 5 to 20 doctor practices. Think about just canvassing Iowa, how much
Right.
how much money and sales time that takes. So they have this great asset of the client base, right? I think is actually the best asset. And it's like, okay, how do we really delight that client base or start to, give them better ways to automate and align with them? So we changed the mission statement, which before was something forgettable for the most part, to better healthcare outcomes for all. And we were defining outcomes on the quintuple aim, just like our clients define it. So better clinical and financial outcomes, a better patient and provider experience, and better health equity and access. And the for all part is important for us because we serve a third of all the federally qualified health centers in the U.S. So the true underprivileged, nowhere else to go for their dental, behavioral, medical care. And we want to be sure they get exactly the best care that they can on those same metrics. And it took us a couple years, but now we're reporting those outcomes to our clients so that they can look at how are they doing compared to other clients and where there's opportunities to improve.
David, I think one of the things that we've watched over the years is you've really put the customers back at the forefront of the mission here. And I know that was something that Shelley had in his letter even, is that he's like, we have to put the customer forward. It felt like the old NextGen pre-U maybe lost a little bit of that. Could you talk about how you've done that? You just hit on it a little bit, but as you think about some of the conversations you had with customers early days versus where we are today, even post our investment, how have you changed the customer perception, or just really, shown them how we're there for them and we're a trusted partner to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with really easy things. Like you need to be talking to, many, clients a week. And, meeting with those clients, you see common threads on how do we treat diabetes better? How do we get the outcomes that we need and different strategies for that? So I think it starts with you've got to meet your clients. You need to listen to your clients and then incorporate that back so that, kind of the organization is kind of externally facing instead of inwardly facing. And then be able to, set up metrics internal that align us with our client strategies. So what strategies are they trying to accomplish? And that's where we need to focus. So if they're trying to improve their physician attraction, right? Because they're competing with hospitals that pay higher salaries, but they maybe have a stronger mission, right? We're serving the underprivileged and really getting people who are in a healthcare desert, whether it's rural or inner city, access to care to improve their lives. And so things like our ambient assist, where we make it easier for them to practice, we help them with work-life balance. Those are big strategies for these organizations because they can't get there, in the normal way of I'll pay you more. That's just not possible. And so, aligning on those strategies then helps us focus what do we work on when we're, kind of together, and then what do we take out to the market to be sure that we're hitting the mark. But we've already tested those ideas with the clients because we're meeting with them all the time.
And for those people that don't appreciate this, I have never, ever seen a CEO out in the field in the battle lines more than you. Every time I call you, you're at a different customer site somewhere around the world or somewhere mostly in the U.S., but your airline mile balance is as high as probably anyone I've ever seen. And I think you really enjoy that.
I don't know that's a good
maybe,
thing.
I know exactly for your family. But I think that customer centricity, that ethos, is very, very easy to spot when you look at the company. And I look at your team, right? I look at your president, Sri Bellamore, James even. I look at Mitch. I look at Katie, all your great team members, Jacob even on CTO is out. You guys are frontline tested as we think about transforming. You cannot do that kind of transformation unless you're out with customers all the time. And so when I look at your team, it's a huge compliment to you. That is a team that is always on the front lines, always meeting with customers.
Yeah. To your point, I think it's especially important for Jake and Diane, who lead our engineering and product organization, to really be out there. And Shree's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. We kind of split the country. So both of us are always seeing clients. It's just ideally, I'm not flying to Vegas and he's flying to North Carolina.
Right.
But that happens. That happened, 3 weeks ago. We were crisscrossing each other in the air, just the nature of it. But 2 weeks ago, we had our sales kickoff meeting in Dallas. And to your point, one of the things we did was we invited all of our clients kind of by different segments of how they, approach the business in for a day. And so we had like 45 clients one day, 25 clients the next day. And since our whole leadership team was there, we just spent the day with them running through, here's, the things that you've told us that we've internalized and we're going to bring back to you later this year at our user group meeting. And here's the things that we're working on that are maybe future leaning some of the AI initiatives. And we think these will be useful and really solve some of your efficiency problems. Which ones do you like better, and how does that align with your strategy?
David, I think that customer point that you were mentioning is so important. I remember back to our first call, when you talked about putting that customer back at the forefront of the vision and the mission, that was so important to you. Could you talk a little bit about that first call from your perspective when we started to talk about accelerating everything you wanted to do, not by 2027, but in the next 18 months? Just relive that call with us for a little bit for our listeners and give them some insights into how this all started, really, like the take private conversation and process. Let's go through that.
Yeah, well, if we start at the real beginning, right? You guys called and said, hey, we'd like to have a conversation with you. And I said, we don't have anything to talk about.
Right. It's true.
Because it's like, we're a public company.
Totally.
You get thick skin in this job. It wouldn't be the first time that I've been
always
rejected.
your first line of defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, got rejected. And then like a couple of weeks later, you said,
Totally.
And I said, if you're wanting to sell us a company, we're always buying, right?
Yeah,
We're always looking to buy. And so then I don't know how long ago.
I think that was in our cold email. Actually, I said I think I have an M&A target to talk to you about.
That's exactly. And it was like a month later. Like you guys went away for a month, and I was like, oh, secret. That was the right thing. And then you guys came back and said, hey, you're the target. And so took that to the board, and they said no the first time too, right? Remember that?
I do.
So you guys are persistent.
Yep.
And then they said, okay, we'll start a process to look at that. So I think that one of the things that was exciting in that process was really thinking through accelerating, both growth and, how can we serve the customer more quickly instead of 2027, pulling that forward to, 2024. And so that's a lot of pull forward, and it really caused us to speed up and think through, our organization structure to be sure that we're really responsive to clients and there's really quick decision making. So some of the things that we talked about when I first started at the company, we got all the top 3 levels together in Atlanta, and we went through this book that's called
you recommended this to me. Turn the Ship Around. Yeah, this is great. Yeah.
So Turn the Ship Around is about a captain taking over a submarine that wasn't performing, and how did he get them to perform? Because everything was going to the top. Like captain had to make all the decisions, and it's this idea of first team. Of your first team isn't like the managers and that team. It's your peers at that level, and how do you make quick decisions? And so we introduced that to speed up our decision-making process with clients and get everyone closer to the client. And so that really started speeding up the company and speeding up growth.
Totally. And I actually think that's a quick aside here, like for Thoma Bravo, AJ, one of the things that I've actually had a chance to read this book, Turn the Ship Around. It's all about decentralized decision-making. Hopefully, David, you feel that we've, put that on steroids now post the take private, is that everyone can make decisions that, has more autonomy, more ownership. But that's something I think at Thoma Bravo is really special about our culture. Maybe AJ, can you talk 2 minutes about that, or just quick take on that?
We try to empower young people. We try to empower people down in the organization to make decisions that would normally be made higher up in the organization. And we are able to do that because we have a lot of velocity. So there's always a lot of decisions. We're very decisive. There's a lot of activity. Activity breeds more activity. And agency is a really powerful thing. So when you have experience, you have autonomy, and you have support from your people above that are pulling you up, not pushing you down, it's like incredible things can happen. And you're a shining example of that. And I think watching David's leadership style when we chose to buy the company, we had a meeting in Montana, right, with your whole entire team where we really got to bond for like a day and a half, which is always, by the way, our home court advantage is come hang out with us in Montana. And, it's always an easy way to lull everyone into a false sense of security. But we got to see that team in action. And that always, for me, is the most palpable diligence session, is watching how the CEO interacts with his or her team members. In your case, you actually spoke very little, right? It was not a command and control organization. It was a flat organization with really well-empowered team members below you. And I would just say how impressed we were and how critical that was into, I think, us understanding what the culture was of what you're developing or what you were developing.
Well, I mean, for anyone who's a CEO or just a team leader or manager, once you speak, the problem solving stops.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're like, hey, we got this big problem, this client needs these things to happen, and the CEO says, I think we should do this, then everyone's like, okay, and end of discussion. Yeah. So you really have to think through, how to not set that culture and then just bring transparency so that everyone sees the same data. And, we always say attack the problem, not the people.
Mm-hmm. Totally. What's it been like working with us, David, on the other side of this take private? Like how have
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good, right? So I mean, we've sped things up. So you guys do make decisions quickly and always available anytime we need to catch up on something. One of the things we've solved together, I think, is how do we do retention better? So you really brought a lot to the company, to NextGen, from that perspective. So we were looking at the traditional way of, I need to grow faster, I'm going to grow sales more. So investing a lot in sales, tens of millions, right? And we were probably, elementary school, like most companies, on retention, red, yellow, green, right? And the red, yellow, green is whatever client manager's perspective of how that client's doing. Now that's been transformed to, we have a team of people who look at data, running a system, and that system gathers data from our support tickets, from, the front line and, everything else, and comes up with a score that's more objective. So it's not based on opinion where you have all this variability, but you see kind of in the data, here's a client that's trending the wrong way. Yeah. And Peter, you even recommended the leader there, Ben Perino, who's done great for us. So
former Nintex.
Yeah, of course.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
We've super helpful.
And we've got Mark as our chairman, who, of course, Mark Bischoff, the Bish, we think the world of Mark. So we've really tried to build a little bit of a family kind of operation with you and Sri and the team and Mark and Tony Palladino and me and Peter. Maybe talk a little bit about just some of the fun we've had together as we've been flying the plane together for the last year and a half.
Yes, our last in-person board meeting was in January in Park City, Deer Valley. Yep. And so it's really fun that everyone skis. So you and I, AJ, skied a year ago in Big Sky.
Deep in the trees.
And that was fun, being at the top, running down all these double blacks together. Because then you get a feel for, okay, how aggressive is this person?
It's a metaphor for business.
Yeah, it is. It's like you're skiing with each other, like, okay, both high-risk takers, very aggressive skiers. Like that just doesn't happen. You can't teach aggression, as I know from my four kids. It's like they're either an aggressive skier or they're not. Like you can say go faster, but if they don't want to, they're not going. I now have a speed limit on my kids at 60 miles an hour, right? And I'm tracking them all. But
it's a good reminder that we might need to take out an extra insurance policy every time we go ski. Gets my chest
tight. The umbrella look like
60 miles an hour is the top, and then they go past, and I'm at the bottom. I'm like, look, I can see he went 63. Like that's over the speed limit. Like 60 is a good number. So, getting together in Deer Valley is really fun to socialize together, ski together. Go through the problems. You maybe were talking things through on the ski lift, right? But really good interaction with each other, and it makes it fun where you're not like, oh gosh, got to go to this board meeting and sit there for 2 days and in a windowless room.
Right. Yeah.
Not like that at all.
And maybe like us compared to the old public company board, Thoma Bravo, like I think give us your perspective on how focused those board meetings are. Like for our listeners, some insight into what that's like versus what maybe the public company board dynamic was like when you were leaving.
Yeah, I mean those board meetings are focused, but they're not as risk forward, right? Because you're trying to serve a diverse shareholder base as that board, right? So when you're both the shareholder and the owner, it's kind of like you can risk on to a much greater degree than if I'm serving everyone from CalPERS to a hedge fund who's super aggressive.
Right.
So you have a lot more regulatory burdens as well, right? Because of that diversity of shareholder base. And so you tend to, I would say, over-index on, regulatory and compliance issues compared to now where we're like, what's just best for the clients? How do we run this faster and just deliver more and more value? Like it's a kind of crystallizing theme for going forward is let's just focus on the client as fast as we can. And then everything else, we'll obviously focus on employees a lot too, but then the shareholders will work out kind of third because the first two are happy and clicking along.
We agree. Having an opportunity with you and your team to build a modern AI-forward business system for the providers was the reason we made the investment in the first place. Team plus this transformation. As we got into it, I saw even more opportunity. We talked about revenue cycle management. We talked about ambient listening. And so the time came for us to say, wow, we actually want to be owners for this company for a lot longer than we ever thought with your team. In order to do that, why don't we bring in another thought partner who's strategic, who spends all their time in this market, who we've done something with before in the past. And now you've gotten to know Jason and Elizabeth and team at Madison Dearborn, who we think the world of. And I thought, wow, if we're going to do this for a next leg of the journey, let's have them come in. We get a little bit of capital back for our shareholders. Great. And now we can go even accelerate further what we were talking about doing on the platform side, even 18 months ago. So maybe talk a little bit about that and how you see that playing out and what your expectations are.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity to kind of have another, set of eyes and somebody who maybe has a slightly different thesis on how do you lead through growth. So I think we've gone through the first phase of transformation of, really efficient company now that's focused on clients with a lot of transparency and data measurement. Madison Dearborn and Jason, Elizabeth, and Jared kind of bring this view of what are we doing from a client satisfaction perspective? Like how do we not just deliver great products, but a great experience, for services. So a lot broader view, billing, everything, how does that work? So we're really, I'd say even more focused now or going forward on the client experience. And then, also thinking about revenue cycle. So we don't have as much revenue cycle management services with our clients as some of our competitors. So that is one to think through. And, obviously continuing the tech transformation or accelerating that also goes back to keeping the clients, delighted when, things just start to work better and better each time because it's, the system is, they can't, operate without it. Like there's no go back to paper for the things that we do, right? Like when you're checking 10 medications and somebody's dental record and their behavioral health and trying to see what's happening to that whole person's care, you have to have a multi-specialty system like NextGen. It's just the only option. If you're in a specialty-only system, you'll miss that they have this behavioral health thing over here because it's not over here, right? Like the behavioral health thing is front and center to, are you going to be compliant on your medications, right? You got a diagnosis of cancer. Are you depressed? Of course you are. Mm-hmm. If that record's separated from the record where you're in therapy or you're taking some antidepressants, then you're going to miss something and maybe have
it's a lost data opportunity.
Bad interaction or a bad outcome because you're not treating the whole person.
David, now that we have Madison Dearborn as a partner with us in the deal, could you talk a little bit about this next phase of the journey with them? What gets you excited, both from a customer perspective and company perspective, but also from a team perspective, and who's going to be really important in that journey as well?
Yeah, so the next phase is going to be, kind of building on now that we have a really, well-run business. How do we just bring our strategies to life at our clients? And so Sri Vellamore, who's our president and COO, ex-McKinsey, right? He's got the strategy part down, right? It's like you read a CV and you're like, okay, he's got it. So really, a lot of his strategies that are the things he's been thinking about doing, it's like you have to first set the foundation of, healthy, great cash flow to be able to invest where you want. Now it's like, okay, now we get to the fun stuff. We've got a great business. How do we really move forward with clients and get the things going that we want to do there? So Sri's leading all those efforts. And most of the company kind of already on how do we operate with clients and how do we do that well? And anything where it's, cross-functional or difficult, Sri kind of, leads those first team discussions on, all right, we got to get to a solution that may not be optimal for sales, service, or product, but it's optimal for the client. Yep. And then, you have to facilitate through that discussion on, all right, this is the way forward. And if you keep the client at the middle, then nobody feels like they're winning or losing.
what's your vision for the future of this company and the future of the market? What place do we serve in a future role of, the way the healthcare industry is going to evolve?
I think that ambulatory is the best part of healthcare because it's like the closest to the patient, right? It's your doctor. And more things are coming out to your doctor's office, like cataracts, like even cardiac catheterization, which used to only be in the hospital, right? It's moving to the office. So I think as the technology in medicine improves, more things are happening right there
at the edge,
at the edge with your doctor. And we're trying to put all of the resources there for not just the doctor, but the front desk staff, the medical assistants, everyone in that ecosystem to be able to become, kind of hyperly more efficient. So using AI to help them not take notes, not click through the system anymore. So a couple of years ago, we came out with our solution even before ChatGPT, where you could have a conversation with someone and it will document the note, start to do orders, do medications, do lab tests, and billing codes. And so we trademarked and have a website called the New UI is No UI. So there's no more clicking and drop-down boxes. That's a change of practice. And it's hard for people to do that. But now it's just you're back to having a conversation with a client, just looking them in the eye.
And the
How are you
accuracy is
doing?
incredible too.
And the billing quality is higher because they're not billers, they're not coders, right? But the computer follows the rules perfectly every time, right? Doesn't care. And we'll bring that to everyone else around that so that one, I think it's incredibly helpful for improving clinical outcomes because you're reminding those people through the journey, like, hey, don't forget this. Check this is a diabetic person hasn't been checked for their eye exam, diabetic retinopathy. Be sure that doesn't exist. You could do those exams using AI, kick out the extra ones to someone to review, the ones that don't look as good, rather than just sending everyone out, right, that are normal. But that even compared to no screening, you take the AI every day. And I think it'll really improve access to healthcare and the ability of people to be seen and hopefully change the cost curve over time because there's so much more capacity just in the given capacity. We just don't have people wasting time on kind of toiling tasks, right? Just get rid of all the toil using automation and get them back to the human empathy side of delivering fantastic care.
Love it.
There's just so much to look forward to. And this, not only in terms of what we've accomplished, David, but obviously just looking forward and what we're going to do together with MDP and the broader team. We're incredibly honored to be your partner. It's been an incredible journey to this point. We're so proud of what we've accomplished, to this date in 18 months. And we just can't thank you enough for being here today, being our partner, and we look forward to all that's ahead.
Let's keep the fun going.
Totally.
Yeah, let's keep rolling. This is fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks to David for coming on today. If you liked this episode, be sure to listen to next week's episode of Beyond the Deal, our mini-series where we get to ask him anything. I'm Peter Hernandez. Thanks for joining us.